Okay, let's talk about all the big moves of the offseason and how they've looked in the preseason so far. Small sample sizes, all that. I want to start with DeJounte Murray, who has had one game with Trae Young. So there you go. That's what we're working with. You know, man, there were not a lot of surprises in DeJounte's first game. Number one, he was guarding Drew Holiday most of the time. There were some possessions where Trae ended up on Drew because that's just what's going to happen in the flow of a basketball game, but that was the clear plan from them. We all pretty much projected that one when they made the move. The next one was their minutes situation where they started the first and second halves together. They would share about 6 to 7 minutes together, and then DeJounte would sit. Trae would finish out the quarter. Then DeJounte comes in at the beginning of the next quarter, and then it becomes the DeJounte show after it being the Trae show at the tail end of the previous quarter. And as far as when they were out there together, they looked like the Atlanta Hawks, where it was a whole bunch of pick and rolls. The difference now is that they just kind of traded places there. So for a couple of possessions, it's going to be Trae. For a couple of possessions, it's going to be DeJounte. And it looked pretty good. I mean, look, DeJounte, he's an awesome passer. We all know this. That bullet pass he had to John Collins when he was diving to the rim was great. He had a bounce pass to Okongwu that was awesome. And he had a whole bunch of his mid-range jumpers, whether they were pull-ups, whether they were Bobby Portis switching, and then he's going to cook him for a moment and then shoot like a 15-footer. He's a very good mid-range shooter. When Trae was running his, I felt like the Bucks were not ignoring DeJounte that hard, and that was part of the conversation. Well, how can DeJounte handle it when Trae is running screens? Through one game, it didn't seem to be that big of a deal. As far as actions where they were playing off of each other, there was like two that I noticed. There were a couple with Justin Holiday that were interesting as well. But one was, as DeJounte was running a screen up top, Trae was starting at the wing, and then right before DeJounte really got into it, Trae went from the wing to the opposite corner, which kind of forced Drew to stick with him as opposed to being more of the scary help defender that he can be. The other was when Trae set a little bit of a screen for DeJounte, and it led to, I believe, like a DeAndre Hunter corner three. But there was one where Justin Holiday got a down screen from Okongwu at the same time that DeJounte got a screen from, I don't remember who the other guy was. And that led to Justin Holiday getting an open look. And I had this moment of, oh yeah, I could see Trae Young doing that. We're never going to see Trae Young be like Steph Curry running around a million off-ball screens. But that doesn't mean you just can't have those little moments of extra off-ball stuff. But through one game, I think if you're Atlanta, you feel good. Now let's get to Donovan Mitchell, who has had one half of playing with the Cavs so far. So actually, one of the early possessions in the game, it was Garland on the left wing with the ball, and then Mitchell got an off-ball screen from Jarrett Allen at the top of the key. And so it gives Donovan an opportunity to either relocate to the corner with Garland right there and the defense being like, oh crap, they're both on the same side of the floor, or potentially it opens up a cut for him. It turned into a drive for Garland. He missed the layup, but it was an interesting moment. Not long after that, where Garland and Mitchell were on the same side of the floor again, Garland, he just flipped it to Mitchell when Mitchell was on the corner, and he kind of screened for him right after. It resulted in Mitchell getting an open three because it forced Maxey to switch, but he couldn't really get around Garland in time, so we're already getting little seeds of how those two can play off each other. And similar to DeJounte and Trae, sometimes it's a Donovan Mitchell pick and roll, sometimes it's Darius Garland, and the other is just going to be spotting up. They did have a couple of down screen plays for Donovan, one of which resulted in him, I think he actually forced Embiid onto like a kind of a switch, and he took him off the bounce, and then it resulted in like a Coro getting this cut basket off of it. So that was cool. As for the defense, Mobley didn't play. And another thing was that Mitchell, he actually started the game guarding Harden on a few possessions, and Okoro did not start. LeVert did. With that said, Okoro did end up guarding Harden a bit more by about like the second quarter, but I guess if you were looking for a clear, this guy is definitely the starting wing based on one game, around the four starters, of course, I don't know if we're really there right now. Now, there was a report from Cleveland.com that said it's LeVert's job to lose. So take that for what you will. Look, Okoro's the best defender out of the bunch between him, LeVert, Dean Wade, Cedi Osman. LeVert has the most scoring chops, but his shot selection can be a little frustrating sometimes. And then you got Dean Wade and Cedi Osman. So we'll see there, man. Let's go on to Gobert and the Wolves. We have not been able to see him and Towns together yet, But what we have seen is Rudy screening for a whole bunch of guys here. I do want to focus on the D'Lo stuff because I think that's the biggest one. So D'Lo, he did get 2 pull-up, like floaters, basically, off of Rudy screens. There was one play where it was more of the kind of slower D'Lo thing where he comes around the screen and he sorts to he gets the defender on his back and he likes to feel out the situation. The Lakers were in deep drop and it just kind of resulted in an awkward pull-up after Scottie Pippen Jr. had already gotten around the screen. There was another play, though, where it was really a lot faster, where Gobert actually started with the ball on the elbow, and then D'Lo came to him, and that resulted in him already having some momentum, and then he got to the rim, and he missed the layup. Gobert was right there for the offensive rebound, but I feel like that's the type of thing that's really going to lead to the Gobert lobs and the kickouts to other guys, because the help defense is scrambling to not give up the Gobert lob, as opposed to the slower sort of methodical sets, which can still have success, no doubt. Besides that, there's like an Anthony Edwards pull-up 3 off of a Gobert screen. There's a Bryn Forbes one, or that one was a pull-up mid-range. Jordan McLaughlin and Gobert also had a similar one of those, like Gobert starting with the ball, and then he comes and gets it, although I think that one was closer to the corner, and it might have even been a little within the three-point line, whereas the D'Lo one was just a regular one on the wing. As for the defense, when Gobert played, at least, as you would expect, not playing super high up on screens, more so a drop coverage, everybody not having to scramble around defensively as much, but really we want to see that when Towns is in the game. Let's go to Jalen Brunson with the Knicks. The best way I can describe this is the Knicks just have more stuff in the toolbox now. There's plays where Brunson brings it up, and then he just gets to the rim without them calling an actual half-court set, which is the most basic basketball concept, but it's like, oh yeah, they can do this. The ball handling duties are not as heavily on Julius Randle now with Brunson being here. One play that really struck me, this was in the Pacers game, first quarter, where they ran a horns action. So it was Mitchell Robinson and Julius, and then Brunson as the ball handler. And it resulted in RJ getting it in the corner. Potentially could have had the catch and shoot 3. He chose to take it off the dribble. And if you freeze frame it, he's got Mitch on the roll. He's got Mitch underneath the basket. The lob is maybe there, maybe not there. He's got Julius Randle, who's open at the top of the key. He's got Brunson, who's also kind of open on the opposite wing. It's a tough pass, but it is there. And he ends up throwing it to Cam Reddish, and then he gets it to Brunson. Brunson bails him out on a tough shot. But I feel like that's the type of play that might look a little awkward right now, but in time it could be a staple of the offense. And the heart of the whole thing is because Brunson's just the lead ball handler that allows you to run those types of actions more, because the threat of him getting downhill is always there. In that same Pacers game, they also ran an inverted pick and roll with Randle and Brunson in the second half on the wing, as in Brunson screens for him, and that got Randle a layup. Let's go to Christian Wood on the Mavs. He's setting screens for Luka. That's about all I got for you. The one that was most interesting to me was it was really early in a possession. It was more like a slip screen than a regular screen, if you will. He got fouled off of it. So let's get to Brogdon with the Celtics. So I don't even have like a specific play that I want to say here. I'm just going to be like, when I see Brogdon doing whatever it is on this team, it just makes sense. If he's spotting up in the corner and then he catches it because Tatum kicks it to him and then it's either a 3 or he takes it off the bounce and then he's hitting somebody else in the corner or whatever, it just makes sense. When I see him running a screen action and then he kicks it to Sam Hauser, who's been lighting up preseason and is probably going to get a rotation spot for the Celtics, it just makes sense. So yeah, I do want to talk about Ben Simmons' second game with the Nets. Was not a big fan of the second game, I gotta be honest. I felt like, so in the first game, there was the screen setting and switching, and then it was like, okay, well, maybe he doesn't have the dive, but there were some conversations about being a little more aggressive in the post, looking for him because he had some opportunities. He didn't light the world on fire, but I thought it was a starting point. Second game, Kyrie does not play for what it's worth. I felt like Ben was just kind of floating around out there, man. I mean, you've got to put some downhill pressure on the defense. I mean, there's like one play there where he took Kyle Lowry off the dribble, and he kicks it to the corner. I think Royce O'Neal makes a 3, so like that's good. But it's just got to be more of that, you know? Hell, there was another play where not long after that one, maybe before that one, he gets a screen at half court, which is something that I talked about a lot this summer, you know? Like, hey, listen, when Ben's bringing it up, just set him a screen and just let him go. And that also generated an open look for guys. So I mean, just leaning into that stuff as often as possible, like go for it. But in that second game, man, the amount of times you could see him just in the dunker spot or just kind of being there and that's it, I'm just like, bro, you can't just be doing this in the offense. Like, you're Ben Simmons, you're the first pick. Please do not be the guy just standing there.